But you have to also know when to show restraint. And one of the chapters that I talk about in Hard Truths, and I know, a lot of other veterans that have faced this scenario, but we were told to hold the line, in a valley. We were holding a flank. And as you know, in Afghanistan, as soon as you're static for a while, eventually you're going to come under fire. Mm-hmm. And I had a coalition element because, again, as Green Berets, we're always embedded. Sure enough, we hadn't been there 30 minutes. Mortar rounds start coming in, hit. Next one comes in, it's closer. Next one comes in, it's closer. Pretty quickly, one of my snipers spots a probably 10, 12-year-old boy up on a hill. Every time this kid brings a phone up to his ear, unarmed, but every time he brings the phone up to his ear, brings binos up, another round comes in closer. And after about the third time that happened, the sniper asked for me permission to take him out. He was sitting on a Beret. And you know what a 50 cal round's going to do to a 10-year-old boy. And I, thought about it for half a second. He's screaming 4-letter words at me, giving permission to take the shot. You start thinking about your own kids. I was thinking about my daughter. Another round comes in, actually wounded one of our Afghans who starts screaming. And, I ended up telling the sniper, take a warning shot. Took a warning shot, splashed rocks, right at his feet. Kid dives behind a boulder, comes back up, takes another shot, and the kid ends up running over the hill, and we didn't kill him. And if you think about it for a moment, like kind of take a step back, and I wrote about times when we've shown restraint as a country and whether that was a right thing. Grant showing restraint with the surrender of Lee, I think prevented a insurgency in the South for many years following, helped the country heal. Truman in Korea didn't hit China. MacArthur fired over it, but showed restraint. Bush, 41, stopped in Kuwait, didn't keep going all the way to Baghdad in the Persian Gulf War. But one of my favorite stories that I think is really untold in history was during the Cuban Missile Crisis. A Soviet submarine executive officer, the number 2. So a Soviet submarine is coming in under the U.S. Navy's blockade of Cuba. They get picked up. Navy destroyer starts dropping depth charges on them. And the Soviet submarine captain believes that World War III is broken out over the Cuban Missile Crisis and orders his executive officer to turn the keys, the dual keys, to launch a nuclear-tipped torpedo into our fleet, which had he done that, no doubt would have kicked off World War III. Vasily Arkhipov was the Soviet Russian XO, refused the order. Didn't do it. And you imagine, Soviet Navy, depth charges are dropping. He refused to launch a nuke at our fleet. They eventually ended up surfacing and found out no, World War III had not kicked off. And that restraint saved all of us, right?
Yeah.
So, back to the story, we ended up following the kid into his village, lined up all the elders, reading them the riot act. And one of the elders stepped forward and said, look, the Taliban were here this morning, told us every family to give their oldest son to go attack the Americans. Al-Qaeda had been in and out. Al-Qaeda had been in and out of that village, telling them the same thing. One family refused, and they hung the 7-year-old boy. His body was laying right there. So I don't know, man. Was that the right call? I'm sure a lot of people watching this saying you should have taken the kid out.
I was in a similar situation.
I say that in the sense of we've got people making these life or death decisions every day. They stick with you one way or another. If I had been sitting, if one of my guys had been killed by one of those mortar rounds, could I explain that to the family? Right. Yeah. But you were saying, sorry.
I don't know. I think that showing some mercy, having a heart is definitely a good thing. I mean, I was in a similar situation in Baghdad where the MSR was getting, IED'd every fucking day. Americans are dying every day. They sent us out. We go sit up outside of it's happening right outside of a schoolyard. And so we're all in a rural environment. And so we're all gillied up. And convoy goes by within the first 24 hours. And right before the convoy comes in, school gets out, these kids come and they set up. I mean, it was 10 yards from me, right fucking there. They did not even, right. I could have reached out and grabbed them. And there was 3 of them. One pulls out a cell phone. I'm like, fuck, please don't do this shit. And
but this is all rules of engagement, right? Like you make a bad call,
yep,
you can be prosecuted.
Yep. Yeah. And convoy goes by. We called it in, said, hey, we got a group of, kids sitting here. And they said, don't engage. Convoy goes by. They fucking hit the IED. They missed. We asked if we could restrain them. Nope. Let them go. And then, you're just thinking back. It's like, I didn't want to kill that fucking kid.
Yeah.
I did not want to kill that kid. But then on the same accord, what happens tomorrow? Whose convoy comes by here tomorrow with this kid sitting in this exact spot, knowing I could reach out and touch him, at least restrain him, kill him, anything to save an American's life, and fucking nothing. And I don't know what the right call is in those scenarios.
Well,
but in yours, I didn't have that kind of closure.
I'll say, as leaders, you have to give our junior officers and leaders and NCOs the latitude to make those calls, the right training, right? The understanding of what you can and can't do. But, President Trump, God bless him, pardoned a number of guys who were just prosecuted to the hilt. One was put in jail for 19 years.
Oh, 4 of them are right up there. Yeah. They're their pardons, the Blackwater guys.
Yeah, right?
We
saw what happened to
3 for 35 years, 1 for life.
We saw what the media tried to do to Eddie Gallagher.
Yeah, there's Eddie Gallagher's murder charges right there.
Right. And it's one of the many things I love about our president, but he instinctively knows you let your warriors be warriors.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.